On Paradise Road was the name of our street, and it's funny because it was nothing. It was, it was the first thing from paradise. It was absolute hell. Imagine waking up in the morning time as a kid, and all you know is, am I going to get beat today? And the whippings weren't like, I'm going to give you like 3 whippings, just like 3 across your butt, whatever. They were like serious beatdowns to the point where my mom had to write letters to school, excusing me from class because I was so bruised up. So that was the beginning of my life. So with that kind of foundation, to take that broken foundation, because you want to build a house on a good foundation. When you have a seriously broken foundation and you go to a small town in Brazil, Indiana, where there's a lot of racism there, and in my book, I have a lot of pictures. Like people, oh my God, you didn't come up like that. Even people from that town didn't believe that Brazil was that bad. No one wants to really, see, because no one's you. No one's you. No one hears what you hear. No one sees what you see. No one's living the way you're living. And they assume what they want to assume because their life's a certain way. And so now I'm in Brazil, coming from Buffalo, and that started a whole nother hell for me. And I started realizing I had learning disability. A lot of it was from toxic stress. So I don't believe I so much had a disability in learning. I believe that when my foundation was so broken as a young kid, all that toxic stress caused a whole bunch of issues. So stuttering, patches of hair falling out, white spots on I still have these white spots on my skin. Weak people are really good at getting in your head because they don't want to ever see you get, like he was really bad on my mom. They never want to see you get above them. A weak person wants to always keep you,
pull you down.
Yes, beneath them. And I started realizing that. So as a young kid, I was taking notes, even though I wasn't the smartest kid because my brain didn't want to learn. It was caught in this hell. They grew up in hate. So all they knew was hate. So they put that hate on me and a few other black kids. So there's about 5 black kids that went to my high school. So I was one of 5. I think it was about 2,000 kids in my school. And one time, I came out of class one day and I saw my brown citation, and it had "nigger, we're gonna kill you" spray painted on it. So these are some things like I hear about bullying nowadays, and stuff like this. If it happened now, it'd be all over CNN News. Back then, my mom was working 3 jobs. By now, her fiance, she was about to get married December. Right after Christmas, and it was when I was 14 years old. She was about to get married, and he got murdered.
Fuck.
So my soon-to-be new role model in my life got murdered. And so, fast forward now, my mom's working 3 jobs. We just moved out of a $7 a month place. So we lived there for about 3 or 4 years, and now we live in this decent house. And but it was always just a constant struggle. But I never put my fears and insecurities on my mother. Because I saw her come up. My dad drug her down the stairs by her hair. She was constantly getting beat. And so when you're a young kid and you see this, you want to protect your mom. So my instinct wasn't like to get help. Tell your mom this is how your life is. She never saw one report card of mine. She didn't know that I was going to flunk out of school. She didn't know how bad things were. I never told my mom that I'm getting called nigger all the time. First of all, it's not cool to be bullied. So I had 2 different David Gogginses. I had the David Goggins that was afraid, that was very timid and afraid. And I had the David Goggins that walked around like he was cool, that nothing hurt him. That was the fake guy.
So even as a young man, you have to create this fake identity to protect you from the brutality of the world you were living in, because you had a father who was abusive.
Right.
Your mom's fiance was murdered.
Right.
You were beaten up in school. You were in a racist school, like one of only 5 black kids in the school with 2,000 white kids in KKK territory, and you were called a nigger all your life.
Right. Well, I have to be real clear on this. What's funny about that is that I was a pretty popular kid in that school. That's the thing. When you look back on it, all you see is the racism. You don't see the popularity and all the kids that liked you. The power in being able to calm your mind down and think. That's one thing I learned in my life, is that when I was in hell, I wasn't able to be in hell and be calm. Hell makes you anxious. Hell makes you want to get out of it. It's that person who has the ability to be in hell and think very calmly, very rationally about what the hell is going on. What's the truth? What's the reality? Why is my dad this way? Why are these kids calling me nigger? Why? You have to be able to piece people apart. Take it down, dissect it, and see what's going on. So back then, I didn't have those skills. I had no skills. All I saw was a whole bunch of kids like me, but I no longer saw that. All I saw was the spray painting on my car, me being called nigger. That's all I saw. My lens was this big. It was very small fucking lens, where now my lens is huge. I see everybody for who they are and what they are. So that's the one thing that changed in me, was my reality. We always paint a fucked up reality that's not even true. It's reality what we think is true because our lives aren't what we want it to be.
Now you took suffering and you made that a superpower.
Yes.
And one of the things that make you David Goggins, right, is your belief in suffering in order to grow.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, I realized that God wasn't going to give me a get out of jail free card. And from the time I was born and to the time I was 19 years old, my life had these hurdles. I constantly hit obstacles. Obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. And I had to figure out how to manage suffering, how to deal with it, because it'd be part of my life forever. At least that's what I thought. So in order to deal with it, I had to be able to conquer it and overcome it and deal with it and know that in this suffering there has to be some kind of growth. With every obstacle, I look at it as friction now. Without friction, there is no growth. You have to have friction in your life to grow. So I started looking at all these different things versus the woe is me mentality. Like, oh my God, look at my life. My life's so fucked up. I come from this fucked up family. I'm being beaten. I'm being abused mentally, physically. I started looking at it as the perfect trial ground. So I had to flip it upside down and say, okay, I'm suffering tremendously, mentally. Use this to your advantage versus your disadvantage. So that's what I did. Versus looking at it as like, oh my God, woe is me, I'm never gonna get out of here. I looked at it as, okay, hang on a second. If I can overcome this, if I can find some power in this, some way to get through this, that right there will be the fuel for the rest of my life. And so I found great strength in suffering. Great strength in it because why? Through all of that, it started to callous my mind over the victim's mentality. I mean, I used to stutter so badly, I couldn't do anything. I had no self-esteem at all. Through suffering, but recognizing. You have to recognize what you've gone through. And that right there gave me pride. I realized that very few people could turn upside down what I did. I was able to turn upside down every negative thing in my life. Everything, and use it for power.
You said suffering is a true test of life.
To me, it's one of the biggest tests of life.